You're watching Story Scroll. Real stories, raw emotions, and endings you'll never forget. Let's scroll into today's tale.
Original post. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, so sorry if this comes off a little scattered. I honestly don't know if I'm being overly sensitive or if something in my marriage is fundamentally broken, and I need some outside perspective. A few nights ago, my wife and I were sitting at the kitchen table after dinner. No phones, no TV, just one of those rare, quiet moments. I told her I needed to talk about something serious. She sighed but said okay. I told her I was considering selling my company. She laughed, like actually laughed out loud. Then she said, word for word, "You're selling your company? Great. Now you can finally afford alimony." She was smiling when she said it, like it was the funniest, most obvious thing in the world. I just sat there staring at her, waiting for the punchline. It never came. For context, we've been married for just over 10 years. I started my company about a year before we got married. It was tiny back then, just me, a laptop, and a lot of late nights. Over the years, it's grown into something real. Not a Silicon Valley unicorn, but profitable, stable, and finally getting serious interest for buyers. My wife has never really respected it. She's always called it your little startup or your hobby. Anytime it came up in conversation with friends or family, she'd downplay it. If someone asked what I do, she'd jump in with, "Oh, he messes around with some tech thing. It's not a real job." Meanwhile, I've been working 60 to 70-hour weeks for most of our marriage. I pay the mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, pretty much everything except her personal expenses. She works part-time, mostly by choice. Anytime I brought up stress or burnout, she'd say, "Well, you chose this." For years, she's been pushing me to sell. Not because she was worried about my health or stress, but because she wanted a different lifestyle. Bigger house, nicer cars, more vacations. She constantly compares us to her friends' husbands, guys with corporate jobs, predictable salaries, flashy titles. Why can't you just sell and get a real job like Mark? Sarah's husband just got promoted again. They're going to Europe this summer. I'm tired of living like we're still broke. We're not broke. We're very comfortable. But it's never been enough for her. Over the last couple of years, something has shifted in our marriage. She's become more controlling with money, even though most of it comes from my work. She criticizes how I spend, but doesn't hesitate to spend on herself. She makes little digs about me in public, jokes at my expense that everyone laughs at, including her. Emotionally, she feels checked out. Conversations are shallow unless they're about things she wants. If I'm stressed, she's annoyed. If I'm quiet, she asks what's wrong, but rolls her eyes at the answer. So when I told her I was thinking of selling, it wasn't some exciting announcement. It was me being vulnerable. I told her I was burned out, that I finally had an offer on the table that was significant, life-changing, even. I didn't give numbers, but she knows this isn't pocket change. I expected concern, or questions, or at least seriousness. Instead, she went straight to divorce. After the alimony comment, she followed it up with, "So, how much do you think I'd get if we split?" She said it casually, like she was asking about interest rates. I asked her if she was serious. She shrugged and said, "I mean, I've put up with a lot over the years." Then she asked if I'd keep the house or if we'd sell it and split it. She was smiling the whole time. I told her that hurt, that it felt like she was already planning for the end of our marriage. She laughed again and said, "Oh my God, relax. It's just a joke." But here's the thing. Jokes are supposed to be funny, and this didn't feel like humor. It felt like she was saying the quiet part out loud. Since then, I can't unsee it. Every comment, every sigh, every complaint feels different. Like I've been reduced to a future settlement in her mind. Like she's already mentally divorced me and is just waiting for the payout. I've started sleeping on the couch because I don't even know how to be around her right now. She's irritated by my silence, keeps asking why I'm being dramatic, and insists I'm overreacting to something she clearly didn't mean. Financially, things are complicated. The company is in my name. Always has been. Some assets are joint, some aren't. The offer I'm considering really is big, but nothing is finalized. And now I feel like I can't even talk to my own wife about it without feeling like prey. I hate that this is where my mind has gone. I hate that I feel like I need to protect myself from my own spouse. Part of me keeps wondering if I'm just being thin-skinned, if this really was just dark humor that landed badly. But another part of me can't shake the feeling that when she laughed, she meant it. So I'm here asking strangers on the internet because I honestly don't trust my own judgment right now. Am I overreacting? Is this just a tasteless joke that I should let go? What would you do if your spouse joked about divorcing you for money, especially at a moment when you were trying to be vulnerable? I don't know what to think anymore. Update 1. First off, thank you to everyone who commented, messaged, and frankly shook some sense into me. I didn't expect my original post to blow up the way it did, but reading thousands of responses from people with no reason to sugarcoat things was sobering. A lot of you said variations of the same thing. This wasn't a joke. You also told me to stop talking and start protecting myself. I listened. To clear up one big question right away, the sale is not finalized. Nothing has been signed. Nothing is public. And after reading your comments, I realized how reckless it would have been to move forward without understanding the consequences. Over the past 2 weeks, I've done a lot quietly. I met with a divorce attorney, not because I filed, but because I needed to know where I stood. I also sat down with a financial advisor who has experience with business exits. I didn't tell my wife about either appointment. What I learned changed everything. The company is separate property. I started it before we were married. It's solely in my name, and I never commingled ownership. That alone was a massive relief. But the bigger revelation was timing. When and how a sale happens matters a lot. The fantasy version my wife joked about, me selling, her taking half, and walking away set for life, simply isn't reality. Her expectations about alimony were also wildly off. I'm not going to get into specifics, but let's just say the numbers in her head and the numbers in real life live on different planets. Armed with that information, I stopped reacting emotionally and started observing. Almost immediately, my wife's behavior changed. She became very affectionate. Out of nowhere, she started cooking my favorite meals again, the ones she hasn't touched in years because they're too much effort. She'd sit closer on the couch, touch my arm when she talked, ask how my day was in this soft, nostalgic tone. She started talking about our future like it was a shared vision again. "We deserve a fresh start," she said one night while pouring me a drink. "I stood by you all these years," she said another time, as if rehearsed. The shift was so sudden it was unsettling. 2 weeks earlier, she was laughing about alimony. Now she was acting like the devoted spouse in a commercial. But the cracks kept showing. She'd casually ask, "So when would the money actually hit?" Or, "Do you think we should upgrade houses after everything goes through?" She started lingering near my office when I was working. Once, I caught her flipping through a folder on my desk that had nothing to do with her. When I calmly changed my passwords and locked down my files, she noticed immediately. She didn't ask politely why. She got angry. She accused me of shutting her out and acting secretive. I reminded her that she joked about divorcing me over money. She rolled her eyes and said I was still being dramatic. A few days later, I told her, very calmly, that the sale might not happen. Not that it wouldn't, just that it might not. Something in her snapped. She raised her voice and said I was ruining her life. She said she had sacrificed everything for me, that she wasted her best years waiting for me to finally cash out. I asked her what she meant by that, and that's when the mask fully dropped. She said she always assumed we'd eventually divorce. That's just how marriages like ours end, in her mind. She told me she figured she'd take her share and start over, and that my selling the company was supposed to be her clean exit. Her exact words were, "That's just how marriages end. Don't act shocked." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't correct her. I just listened. That moment did something to me. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in a quiet, final one. Whatever part of me was still hoping this was a misunderstanding shut down. Since then, I've stopped engaging emotionally. I don't debate. I don't explain. I don't defend myself. I document everything. Dates, conversations, shifts in behavior. I keep things polite and neutral. She's noticed the distance. She alternates between being sweet and being cold. But I don't think she realizes yet that I'm no longer confused. I'm not trying to fix this. I'm just being careful. Here's where I'll end this update, because a few people asked where things stand now. I received 2 serious offers. One would require me to stay married through the sale process. One wouldn't. I've made a decision. She doesn't know yet. Final update. This will be my last update. Not because everything ended in fireworks, but because it ended in something much quieter and final. The sale is complete. I finalized it on my terms, after legal separation, exactly as my attorney advised. The timing mattered. The structure mattered. And because I listened instead of rushing forward emotionally, the outcome was very different from what my wife had confidently joked about months earlier. The company I built before we were married was sold cleanly and legally as separate property. There was no windfall waiting for her. When she finally understood that, the illusion she'd been living in collapsed. She found out during a meeting with our attorneys. I wasn't dramatic about it. I didn't announce it or weaponize it. It was simply laid out in black and white. The sale had happened, the proceeds were protected, and the settlement she was entitled to was modest. Her reaction was immediate and unfiltered. She started yelling. Not crying at first, angry yelling. She accused me of planning this from the beginning, of tricking her, of deliberately waiting to screw her over. She said I'd stolen her future, that I was cruel, that no decent husband would do this. Then she cried, loudly, desperately, the kind of crying meant to rewind time. I didn't say much. There wasn't anything left to explain. Everything she was accusing me of doing intentionally was, ironically, exactly what she'd admitted she planned to do to me. Once the paperwork moved forward, reality set in fast. She moved into a smaller apartment. 1 bedroom. No abraços. No luxury finishes. The spending habits she'd never thought twice about suddenly mattered. She sold one of the cars. Stopped traveling. Complained, often and loudly, about how unfair everything was. Some of her friends distanced themselves. A few, I later learned, didn't appreciate being told a one-sided story that painted me as a villain when the numbers didn't match the narrative. Others simply disappeared when there were no more fancy dinners or aspirational lifestyle posts. She tried to reframe everything. To anyone who would listen, she was the supportive wife who believed in him from day one and was now abandoned after his success. It was strange hearing about this fictional version of our marriage through mutual acquaintances. Then came the messages, late-night texts, long paragraphs, emotional whiplash. I was joking, you know that. You know I believed in you, right? You didn't have to do this to me. I didn't respond at first. I didn't feel angry anymore. I mostly felt tired. Eventually, I replied once. One sentence. No explanation. No argument. You laughed when you thought I was worth money. That was it. The divorce finalized quietly a few weeks later. No dramatic courtroom scenes. No final shouting match. Just signatures, timelines, and an odd sense of stillness when it was done. I didn't feel victorious in the way people imagine. There was no urge to celebrate or rub anything in. What I felt was relief. The kind that settles into your body when you realize you're no longer bracing yourself every day. After everything was over, I took time off. Real time. I slept. I traveled alone. I let myself be bored for the first time in years. I reconnected with parts of myself that had been buried under responsibility and pressure and the need to constantly prove my worth. What I learned surprised me. Love doesn't mock your vulnerability. Respect doesn't come with conditions. And someone who jokes about leaving you for money has already left in every way that matters. I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm. I just finally see her clearly. And I see myself more clearly too. To everyone who commented on my first post and told me to slow down, protect myself, and pay attention to what was actually being said instead of what I hoped was being meant. Thank you. You helped me hear the truth when I didn't want to. And for anyone reading this who recognizes themselves in my earlier confusion, if your partner laughs at your fear, your exhaustion, or your vulnerability, listen. That laugh isn't harmless. It's information. Turns out, selling my company didn't make me able to afford alimony. It made me able to afford leaving.
Thanks for watching Story Scroll. Hit that bell and stay tuned for the next story that will move your heart.